follows as to count 1 of the charge. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder of Robin Cornell.
And you just heard it. Justice 33 years later. The words guilty coming down late tonight in the trial against Joseph Zieler. Thank you for joining us for Fox 4 News at 10. I'm Nadine Yanis.
So Zieler now convicted on 2 first-degree murder charges for the killing of an 11-year-old girl, Robin Cornell, and her babysitter that night, Lisa Story, in Cape Coral in 1990. A case that went cold for decades until his arrest years later, though, after a DNA match from an unrelated arrest, all leading to the guilty verdict tonight. We'll now bring in Fox 4's Kaitlin Knapp, who was in the courtroom to hear the verdict.
Yes, it took 3 hours, almost 3 hours on the dot to find Zieler guilty of killing 11-year-old Robin Cornell and 32-year-old Lisa Story. Robin Cornell's family, including her mother, were in the courtroom all day, even as Zieler took the stand. Now, right when the verdict was read, there were tears running down their faces. They were embracing each other. And at one point, they were hugging prosecutors and saying thank you, all while Zieler was in the distance getting his fingerprints done before going back to jail. Now, as that verdict was read, Zieler's face remained blank, but by the end of reading, Zieler had a smirk on his face at one point. He smiled at one of his attorneys, too. Zieler had a different change of pace in court today, though. He testified in his defense, and at one point he made a derogatory gesture at what appeared to be our news cameras. Then he had an outburst, forcing the jury out of the courtroom.
Piece of paper right here that they're trying to hide from you.
Mr.
Right
Zieler.
I still see the body of 11-year-old Robin Cornell with the hand, with the hair of her
Ladies and
killer.
gentlemen, the jury will step out.
The blonde
Mr.
hair of her
Zieler,
killer.
please.
Yes.
Is that in any way unclear?
Can I use the microphone?
Is that in any way unclear, Mr. Zieler?
All of this culminated with closing arguments. Prosecutors really honed in on the DNA, saying DNA found at the zine was a match to Zieler in 2016 when he was arrested. The defense argues Zieler had no motive to kill Robin Cornell and Lisa Story, so he couldn't have done it. But as you heard, the jury thought otherwise, convicting Zieler of killing both Cornell and Story 33 years ago. Now, we tried to talk to the family as they left the courtroom. They didn't want to go on camera. Obviously, still a really emotional time. And Jan Cornell, the mother of Robin, at one point she did say this is not over yet. And she's right. We still have a penalty phase to go through. And this is when prosecutors will try to argue an aggravating factor to convince the jury that they should put death penalty on the table as an option when he is sentenced. Now, if that isn't on the table, there is another option, and Zieler could face 25 years in prison at least, with the possibility of parole after those 25 years. That will all begin next Tuesday morning. We'll bring you the latest as soon as that comes, again next Tuesday. Reporting live inside the Lee County Courthouse, Kaitlin Knapp, Fox 4.